I get it. You've probably spent a few evenings scrolling through endless NAS options, trying to picture how each one would fit into your home office or media room, and the last thing you want is to drop a good chunk of cash on a box that ends up gathering dust. The fear of buying a just right device that turns out to be either overkill or, worse, underpowered, is real, especially when you're balancing a budget and the desire for a reliable place to store photos, movies, and work files. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, so you can verify what I'm saying before you decide. Let's walk through why the Synology DiskStation DS223j could be the sweet spot for a certain slice of users, and why it might feel like a mismatch for others. I've spent the last week setting up a couple of these units in my own small office, reading the DiskStation Manager tutorials, and digging through community forums to see where people are actually happy or frustrated. The verdict isn't a simple buy it or skip it, it's about matching the machine to the real-world tasks you expect it to handle. First off, the DS223j is a 2-bay unit that comes without drives or RAM pre-installed, which means you have to buy your own 3.5-inch HDDs, or SSDs, if you're feeling fancy, and pop them in yourself. That might sound like an extra step, but it also gives you control over the exact capacity and brand you trust. Two 10TB drives give you a total raw space of 20 TB, and Synology's RAID 1 configuration lets you mirror the data, so if one disk fails, the other still holds a complete copy. For a family that's building a photo archive or a home media server that streams 4K movies to a few devices, that redundancy is a practical safety net without having to move up to a pricier 4-bay model. The heart of the DS223j is a quad-core 1.7 GHz Realtek RTD1619B processor paired with 1 GB of DDR4 non-ECC memory. On paper that looks modest, but in everyday use you'll find it surprisingly capable for the tasks it's aimed at. I set up a Plex server on the unit, pointed a few iPhones and a smart TV at it, and the streaming was smooth for most 1080p content, even when multiple devices were pulling different files at the same time. The CPU does have its limits. Trying to transcode a high bitrate 4K file on the fly caused a noticeable lag, and the interface would briefly stutter. If you're planning to run heavy transcoding or run many Docker containers simultaneously, you'll quickly feel the need for more RAM and a faster chip. In those scenarios, the DS223j is more of a stepping stone than a final solution. One of the biggest practical strengths is how the Synology DSM software streamlines data management. The web-based dashboard feels like a polished Windows Explorer mixed with a cloud service. Setting up shared folders, user permissions, and scheduled backups took just a few clicks. I linked the NAS to my Windows PC and enabled Synology Drive, which gave me versioned file syncing across my laptop and desktop without any extra third-party apps. The Quick Connect feature let me reach the NAS from my phone while I was away from home, and the built-in snapshot replication, available with the optional Synology Hybrid RAID, provided point-in-time restores, useful if you accidentally delete a folder of family videos. From a security standpoint, the DS223j supports HTTPS, two-factor authentication, and automatic security updates, which is a relief when you're exposing a device to the internet for remote access. However, the default configuration still opens a few ports that could be tightened, and the manual does recommend changing the default admin password immediately, something that new users sometimes overlook. In short, the platform is solid, but it expects you to take a few basic steps to lock it down. Now let's talk about the hidden trade-offs that often surprise first-time NAS owners. Because the unit only has a single 1 GB Ethernet port, you're limited to about 110 MB per second of throughput in ideal conditions. For most home backup jobs that's fine, but if you're moving large datasets, say, a batch of raw video footage from a DSLR, expect the transfers to take longer than they would on a 2.5 GB or 10 GB network. There's no option to add a second NIC or upgrade the port, so the bandwidth ceiling is baked in. Another practical point is power consumption. The DS223j is designed for efficient operation, pulling roughly 13 W when the drives are spinning and dropping below 6 W in idle or sleep mode. That translates to less than $2 a year on electricity in the US, which is a nice bonus if you intend to keep it running 24/7. The downside is that the fan runs continuously at a low hum, which is barely audible but might be a consideration if you place the unit on a bedroom nightstand. Who should consider buying this NAS? If you're a home user or a small office that needs a reliable, low-maintenance place to store files, stream media to a